I'd like to call the meeting to order for March 23rd, 2021. Would you please stand for a moment of silence? Thank you. Would you please join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Trustees. Here. 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 And we have no minutes, so I will make a motion to pay our expenditures. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Trustee Sheets?
Yes.
Trustee Connor?
Yes.
Trustee Good?
Yes. And Deputy Carter will not be here tonight because he is doing a special duty detail because the president is in town. So we will move on to Robert.
How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Well, since the last meeting, we end up cutting that tree up at Gundy Cemetery. So the resident next to that cemetery should be pretty happy now. We got 2 new tires for truck 22. They finally came in. So we should be good for a little while. Hoping to replace the other side maybe next year. On the rainy days, we've been doing equipment and mower maintenance, getting ready for spring mowing. We finished up our second round of potholes, but I did notice there are still some forming, so we may have to make a 2.5 round. Other than that, the guys are out putting berm along the roadsides to build the edges up, edges up. And I'd like to would we like to have a spring cleanup? I think the fall cleanup worked out pretty decent, so.
Yes, I think we should.
Okay. I've got some date. If you've got my agenda, I would kind of like to go with the 14th and 15th of May. I'd like to give our tire recycler one more chance to make up for what happened last time. They had a death in the family and it was an odd issue, but it seemed to work out in the end. But
I'm okay with whenever you want to do it.
okay. Well, I mean, that way it's warmer weather and hopefully.
Let's go with the 14th and the 15th of May then.
Sounds good.
Okay, that's fine. That's all I have.
Anything else for Robert? Nope. Okay. Move on to Chief.
We are currently at 69 runs for the month of March. We had the final inspection on Peterson 232 yesterday. That went very well. I noticed on the agenda Ed's going to report out on that, so I'll let him discuss that, but we were very pleased with it. It should be back hopefully by the first week of April. They've got to arrange a shipper and they're going to flatbed it back to us, so we'll have it back and we'll get it started and get it back in service once it gets here. We need to put brakes on Medic 2, so we got a couple quotes for that. Fire apparatus is going to be doing that. About $1,300 is the cost. We did have another quote for almost $1,500, so we'll be getting that done. You guys are aware we're having some COVID issues here. We have currently 5 full-time, 3 part-time members that have become ill in the last couple of weeks. So we've reinstituted our lockdown, and a lot of the policies we've started to kind of relax because things were starting to get better. But, somehow we got a strange variant in here, and we've got a number of people sick. So hopefully we're nearing the end of the outbreak and we can, start turning the corner again. Manpower, there's going to be quite a bit of overtime, but so far we're okay on manpower as far as that goes. So I do have just one request this evening. As you're aware, on March 31st at 0800 hours, Lieutenant Dave Moore will be retiring from the department after 39 years of service to the township. In anticipation of his retirement, earlier last year, we conducted a promotion process and identified firefighter James Kuno as his replacement at the rank of lieutenant. Tonight, I would ask the board for a resolution officially promoting firefighter James Kuno to the rank of lieutenant effective at 0800 hours on April 2nd, 2021, which will be the beginning of his first shift after Lieutenant Moore's retirement.
Paul, is our next resolution number 26? Is that what you're think so? I'll make resolution 26 to promote James Kuno to lieutenant effective 0800 hours on April 2nd, 2021. You have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Trustee Sheets?
Yes.
Trustee Henry?
Yes.
Trustee Good? Yes.
Jamie is here tonight, so after the meeting, we can bring him in. You guys can congratulate him if you'd like, and we'll do it. Once things recalm down around here, we'll schedule a swearing-in ceremony for him and firefighter Shambaugh and anybody else we might need to. So just a quick coronavirus update besides our own issues. There's 30,185 active cases in Ohio as of today. It's 143.8 cases per 100,000 statewide. 3,773 active cases in Franklin County. We're at 163.96 cases per 100,000. So we're actually above the state average at this point. So county still remains at red, and we will remain until we hit below 100 cases per 100,000. So that's my report for this evening, unless you guys have anything for me, and Ed can follow up on the engine.
I don't have anything.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, old business, you want to give a rundown on what you did?
Yes, the chief, myself, and Aaron Price traveled to Appleton, Wisconsin to do the final inspection on engine 232. The truck from the outside appears the same as it was when it left here, with the exception of when you slide underneath it on a creeper, the whole underneath side looks like a brand new truck. In doing the final inspection on it, we found 8 minor issues that need to be addressed before the truck came back, and they had people on that and said those would be completed within the hour. So they done an excellent job as far as we could tell.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to go do that, both of you. Anything else for old business? Okay, we'll go on to new business. I just had some notes on here. And do you have any new business?
I know.
Nope. Okay, under announcements, I have that I received a call from a Darbydale resident asking when the trustees are going to clean up Darbydale. Well, it is up to each property owner to maintain their own property. If you don't, the trustees may request Franklin County Code Enforcement to check for violations, which I have emailed the code enforcement officer about this call to check into the code violations. If a property owner does not take care of their violations, then they may be sent to the prosecutor for prosecution. In the meantime, anyone who would like to form a Darbydale community cleanup or any other area of the township, please contact the trustees with your ideas and we will assist you to get up and running with your committee. One of the reasons we hold a spring and a fall cleanup is to make it more convenient for the residents to keep their properties and the township clean and nice looking for everyone to enjoy. So please contact us if you would like to form a committee in your neighborhood. And the annual Franklin County District Advisory Council meeting will be held this Thursday by a Zoom meeting at 6 o'clock. Anybody have anything else?
You said you were attending that one, right? Okay. I don't have anything.
Okay, Paula?
Okay, we've received a notice on an injured worker from BWC and was asking if we had any input, but it was dated March 8th, and I didn't get it in the mail till last night, and there was a deadline, so we've already passed that deadline. A couple emails on scheduled meetings for to discuss the mosquito program. That is on a Zoom. Nancy mentioned the annual Franklin County District meeting on Thursday. An email from Franklin County Auditor's Office, just some basic information on the American Rescue Plan Act that was signed into law. They will update us more on that. Franklin County Tech Review Committee had a meeting today scheduled. A couple emails from Emergency Management on Spring Severe Weather Awareness Week and the annual statewide tornado drill. Couple emails from the Ohio Township Association, legislative alerts, just different information. Another email on the mosquito program. Couple emails from WorkC, Planning Commission's announced the recipient of the 2021 Collaborative Achievement Award and their regional newsletter. Update on personnel at Fern and Flower. Couple emails from Otarma, talking about replacement surety bonds and return to work considerations in the sheriff and an Otarma newsletter. And that's pretty much everything I have. Other than I would like a resolution to authorize me to put $10,000 over to the medical reimbursement account. And also authorize me to prepare the 2021 permanent appropriations.
I'll make resolution 27 for you to transfer $10,000 into the medical account. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Trustee Sheets?
Yes.
Trustee Hunter?
Yes.
Trustee Good? Yes.
And what was the other one for?
For authorization to prepare the permanent appropriations.
I will make resolution 28 to authorize Paula to prepare the permanent appropriations. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Trustee Sheets?
Yes.
Trustee Hunter?
Yes.
Trustee Good? Yes. Everything I have.
Thank you. Robert, have you been in on any of those mosquito meetings?
I was getting ready to ask you the same thing. I had planned on attending the one Friday, or the last one, and we were busy doing things and I couldn't attend. I was wanting to, but I did not, so.
Okay. All right, is there anything else?
I have several people on the call, and two of them have indicated they would like to speak.
Okay,
I will hook you up with Mr. Scott Newberry. Mr. Newberry, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
good
Thank you
evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you all for letting me address you guys. My name is Scott Newberry. I actually do not live in your township. I live just north of you guys. Wanted to ask you guys if you have been in these meetings, anyone has discussed the solar project that is planned for Pleasant Prairie.
I attended one, I think in December or January. This is Nancy Hunter.
Okay. Represent a group of residents that are concerned with the project. We've got a very, very large group of active people in our township. It seems like the concerned citizens in your township are not super up on this technology with trying to do these online meetings. So maybe there's some people that are trying to dial in. I'm not sure, but I wanted to go ahead and speak on a little bit on their behalf tonight, if I could. I don't know. I guess only they haven't briefed all of you on the scope of the project or kind of how the project is scheduled to progress forward.
Well, before you go any further, haven't they called you?
They have.
They called,
Yes, they have.
they've called us several times
In
from
Venergy,
the solar project to give us updates and send us emails.
And ask if there's any questions or if anybody has a problem. And at our last meeting, we published a number of the contact person for the Prairie Solar Project. If anybody had any questions or concern, they could address them to him.
okay.
Do we still have that number?
I don't have a with.
I've got all their numbers. That's we've had lots of communication with the group and with the developer.
This fellow's name was Jeff, but he never did give us a last name.
Yeah, it's Jeff Hira, and he may be on the call. He may speak here in a little bit. What I wanted to address you all about then, if that's where you're at, is the role that you potentially need to play in the process. This is something that we've been talking with Prairie a lot about, and I don't know how much the trustees from different townships talk to each other, but Prairie Township has pledged to become an intervener in the process, and I can speak briefly about the process and why that's important.
Have they made a resolution to do so?
They did so at the last meeting, yes. I'm sorry. They have made a pledge to. They're holding off on a formal resolution because they have to wait, from what they told us, legally until the initial certificate is granted. So basically, the siting board has to give Invenergy a certificate of completion with regards to the application itself. And at that point, that's when the 60-day period for registration to become an intervener begins. And so that is when they are waiting to actually pass that resolution and execute that action.
Okay,
And in the interim, they have issued a letter also in support of House Bill 118 and Senate Bill 52, also kind of related to this matter. But if you guys are, I'm assuming, much like my township trustees, you guys may or may not be familiar with the process. And I would like to, if you have a few minutes, to just kind of lay that out just in broad strokes, just to maybe put the, plant the idea as to the necessity of becoming an intervener for your constituents as well.
okay, go ahead.
Okay. The Ohio Power Siting Board has jurisdiction zoning wise and essentially in total for any power generation project via wind or solar greater than 50 megawatts. Anything under 50 megawatts technically is in your purview. So for example, let's say I have 5-10 acres and I wanted to put a, 150-foot tall windmill on my property to help supplement my electric bill. That would fall fully into your zoning authority. Beyond 50 megawatt, that's considered significant, quote unquote. And so the siting board takes over jurisdiction from you. So you don't really have any true control over a specific yes or no. What they do leave you with, though, is the ability to become what they call an intervener in the case. The siting board acts as it's basically a court, and as an intervener, you would be able to present the concerns of your constituents and be an advocate for them in the process. What they don't necessarily, what they're not very telling as far as, with information regarding this process, is that anyone can, any citizen, anyone that wants to, any business owner, people out of state, in state, anyone can post public opinion to the siting board case files, to the process. And the siting board can decide to, hear those comments out. They can act on, they could choose not to act on them. However, they're not bound to anything that comes through that forum. The only way to truly affect change and actually be a part of the process is to be an intervener in the case. As an intervener, you're basically legally just saying you're reserving your right to have your voice heard and actually be addressed in the proceedings. As an intervener, you're not required to intervene or actually participate if you don't feel the need to. So let's say the project goes off, and all through planning, through development, into construction and into commissioning, everything goes super smooth. It didn't cost you any money to become an intervener, and there was no need for you to do anything at all. Where it gets a little more interesting is in the event that there's someone takes you as a group take issue, or a large group of your constituents take issue with a part of the project. The best way for that those concerns to be levied through is through the intervening process, and ideally through you, the township. Let's say once the site goes into build out, actually into construction, and there's an issue with construction somehow negatively impacting the citizens in a way that was unforeseen. The only way to have recourse is to go through an intervener. Anyone that's not an intervener really has no standing in the case whatsoever. And that goes clear on through until 5 years down the road when the thing is actually up and operational. If there is a sound issue, a glare issue, if they damaged the drainage in the area and it wasn't discovered during the time of construction, but it was discovered during a large rain event afterwards, again, the only way you have any recourse at all is via an intervention, being an intervener. So townships and other advisory boards, any type of legislative body is automatically allowed to be an intervener. All you have to do is file the paperwork, which is what Prairie Township will be doing. Individuals and citizens can also petition to become an intervening party. However, it's strongly advised that you also retain legal counsel, and the costs end up being pretty significant. And it generally ends up being kind of a one-on-one kind of battle, and that puts pretty much everyone fighting for themselves. Again, not necessarily anticipating a problem, but if you do not become an intervener in that 60-day window, the door is shut. So again, no recourse, no ability to go back and say, "Ooh, we wish we would have done that. We actually have an issue. We have a problem." The door will be shut. So rather than, and this is where Prairie has also agreed, rather than force a large number of adjacent property owners to fend for themselves, more or less, the common concerns that we're seeing so far in the project are pretty universally held by everyone that's adjacent to the project. And so it should be pretty easy to get a consensus and voice any opinions or problems or questions, concerns with the siting board.
What are the concerns?
The biggest concerns, and there was actually almost 6 hours of testimony today regarding these projects with the House Committee on Power Generation. The big concerns are that the siting board's rules, they don't have any real zoning rules to follow that affect surrounding residents. So for example, I can speak to the zoning that we have in Prairie. I'm sure you guys are probably similar. For example, let's say someone wants to, a business owner wants to, land developer wants to put in something like a self, like a you store it place. I'm sure you guys have got restrictions on how many feet set back for a fence line, the type of fence, the appearance of the structure, the plants that have to be planted out front, noise requirements in a commercial area, all these things that are normal that would fall under zoning jurisdiction, not to mention building and building code, everything else. That's all very, very much like a cookbook, and you follow the rules. You submit your application, you get your approval, and you build the building, and it goes on. And most people are generally accepting of that. If there's a big problem, we come to you and we say, hey, this is an eyesore, can we change it? That's a normal process. With the siding board, none of that is in a cookbook, and they've got guidelines that require due diligence to make sure that the site doesn't harm the environment, but there's nothing codified that requires that the sites, wind or solar, don't negatively affect or impact the people that live near the site. So the largest concerns right now is something they call view shed. So basically, where I live, I've got a great view of a farm, and farm things happen on all the time. I've got tractors and buildings and activity all the time, and crops. However, the solar panels that are being planned to go into the site are articulating solar panels that follow the sun, and they end up being 12.5 feet high or higher at their maximum attack angle, trying to follow the sun. That's a bit taller than the average crop. On top of that, although they claim that the panels are not supposed to be reflective, as we've now got, pretty good evidence from some of these other projects going in Ohio, the glare coming off these panels is pretty intense. And I am directly in the east-west line for the panels. And so depending on what time of day it is, I have a pretty good shot of all day, every day, getting, especially as the sun is setting, I'm going to be getting a pretty good view of those panels. Other people at odd angles might also end up having odd glare, basically at like a perpendicular angle, so north-south. That's one of the biggest concerns. Normally, and as was testified today, normally land developers seek to avoid negative, response from the community. And so there's a very robust vegetation plan that they voluntarily put forth through the siding board. The problem is that is not required, it's voluntary. And unfortunately, from what we've seen so far from the filing documents, Invenergy is not planning on doing that. In fact, when this project was first announced, I contacted Josh directly and asked about these and other issues. And their directive is not at all to shield the site from anyone within the view shed. Their goal is only to, quote unquote, blend it in. When I asked specifically about vegetation, the end result is that they're circulating what they call a good neighbor agreement. Basically, this is an easement, it's a contract, where they try to offer individual homeowners a small cash payment for the inconvenience of building the site and for the continued inconvenience of the site being near their home. From what we're finding out, as we're all learning about this as we go, Invenergy's small payment is laughably small compared to what the average company offers for these types of things. Two, it's not industry practice or recommended to have confidentiality agreements attached to these things, which Invenergy does. And finally, it's basically, instead of having a universal policy of we want the whole community to be, not be negatively impacted by this site. We're going to have a vegetation plan that's robust and screening the fencing and screening all of the kind of ugliness of the panels and of the structures. They're making each individual homeowner essentially fight them one by one in a divide and conquer style scenario. The other issues that are shared by most that go along with this vegetative screening program are the noise. Noise both during construction and noise once operational. What they don't tell you is when the sun is at maximum shine or generating the most amount of electricity, there are hundreds of inverters that have to be installed to convert the energy from DC, kind of what your car runs off of, to AC, which is what the power grid needs, what our houses run off of. These inverters make a lot of noise. And again, there's no codified setbacks or minimum maximum noise requirements. So per these contracts, part of the negotiation is also for a sound variance or sound, I just lost the word, I'm sorry. It's not a variance. Easement, there you go. It's also for sound easement. Again, without vegetative screening goes a long way in reducing the sound profile of these inverters. But again, there's no robust plan. The last thing is the fencing and the drainage. And they kind of go hand in hand in my mind, just because they both have the same worry. On one side, that is, there is no drainage plan yet submitted. I'm expecting at some point there will be, but there is no broad, again, robust drainage plan. Their only drainage plan so far that they've submitted has said, if we happen to notice that we hit a drainage tile, we promise to fix it. They're going to be driving, it's estimated around 100 pilings. This is an estimate. They haven't given an actual estimate, but from other projects, we're seeing around 100 or 150 pilings per acre for these panels. We're talking about 2,500 acres. So it's going to be a lot of pilings going to the ground. You can't tell when you hit something when you're running a pile driving machine. It just kind of goes in the ground. So again, going back to being an intervener, we're not going to know necessarily that that they've damaged field tiles, which are more or less a community drainage system, until we actually have a problem. Same with the fence posts. The site currently is supposed to be completely encompassed with a chain link fence, somewhere around 6 feet high, maybe not, with barbed wire on top. So all those fence posts will be driven into the ground as well. Aesthetically, there's not many places that really, look highly upon a chain link fence. And lastly, we're talking about 2,500 acres completely encased in fencing, with no breaks as of yet. That's the entire area of the John Glenn International Airport, by the way. This is a massive area. I'm sure, as you all know, we've got a lot of deer traffic and activity. We've got a lot of coyote, and a lot of other predators that are going to be displaced by a 100% fencing program. They've not mentioned anything yet as far as adjusting the fencing program to be deer friendly. There are a number of programs throughout the United States that have pretty specific studies done on deer friendly fencing that also could allow coyote traffic too. Another concern is displaced coyote tend to become quite a problem in more residential areas. And unfortunately, this project, unlike others that have been erected so far in Ohio, this is a agricultural zoned land that directly abuts a large number of residential properties. And that's kind of unique to this project so far in Ohio versus other projects. So the other projects have been really out in the middle of nowhere, where there's 10, 20 homes that are farmhouses that are affected. This is directly affecting over 200 residents just via direct adjacency rules. So my property directly abuts the property that the solar panels are going in. By sound and light analysis, it's going to affect well over 300 residents. So those are the primary concerns are the basically the view shed and then the noise. There's also no abatement strategy at all for the construction. So the construction is expected to take 1.5 years, give or take. They'll be using, they described it as tracked specialized pile driving equipment. Those things rip out 120 decibels all day long, just hammering away, and it's a god awful sound. If this project were to be done, if any project that requires pile driving is done anywhere near a city or a town, they don't use that type of equipment, and they erect sound barriers to help reduce the sound signature. They restrict the operating times, and they do additional measures for the machines themselves to get that sound signature down to a more tolerable level. Typically, in a commercial setting, I don't know about your zoning, but it's more like 60 decibels. There's a number of property owners that are going to be surrounded on 3 sides by this project, and so they can easily anticipate 1.5 years of just horrible noise. And again, vegetative screening would help, and additional kind of community-minded measures could easily help, but there's none of those planned so far.
All right, well, thank you for your information. Good detailed information. We appreciate it.
I can provide my contact information to your host if you'd like to, if you have any follow-up questions. I also encourage you to, if you want information, reach out to Prairie Township trustees. Kathy Schmelzer especially has been very concerned with the potential issues that might come up with this project. And yeah, just any questions you guys have. I do know that there is it's a smaller percentage of the project is in your township, but it still does affect a number of your residents.
All right, thank you. And yes, would you leave your contact information?
I will. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
The other person that wanted to speak was Jay Hart. Doesn't give me a first name, so.
Yes. Hey, guys.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yep, we can hear you.
Hi, Ed, Nancy, and Randy. How are you?
Good, how are you?
And how you
Good,
doing?
guys. Good. Thanks for what you do out here for us. We really appreciate it. I know, Scott, I was actually at the meeting they had in Prairie Township. And I think just very briefly, Ed and Nancy, we've talked just a little bit about this project. Scott is much more knowledgeable than I am when it comes to the processes, dealing with the state of Ohio. I am a Prairie Township resident. And I'll tell you from my standpoint, I'm talking really from right now, the aesthetics part of this, the real estate value part of it. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the board. I serve the Darby Creek Accord because we really have no jurisdiction in this. But it's not that any of us are against green energy, and it's not that any of us are against the potential that's out there for farmers who own farmland. This is a solar generating system, the size really unlike its kind. Anyway, I don't know where there's another one of this size and this magnitude. I don't think this company has built one this big. And if they have, it's got to be in another country. The only project they have working right now, I believe, of any substance is north of Chicago. That's where you would have to go to see one of their operating sites. I hope my information's correct, guys. But I think we've got a pretty big gift out here, or we have a great gift in Pleasant Township, and that is the Darby Creek Park. And it's just something where I believe a system like this is going to end up changing the character of our township and of this area. And again, we're not against green. It just probably doesn't belong here. I've mentioned a few times, go 71 south or 70 west, and there's literally thousands of acres where something like this could be put. and maybe affect a barn and a house. I think since we're dealing with so many residences, I have a fear of property value. Will this affect property value? Absolutely it will. They have a report from somebody, I think in the Carolinas, that I wasn't impressed with. And basically, his conclusion was this will not affect property values. I guarantee you this will affect property values. Maybe not in this market that we're in, but 10 years from now, 5 years from now, when we're in a normal real estate market, I know for a fact if there's a home, like a home, near the solar project, they're probably going to pick the home that's not near this project. The fencing, a chain link fence with barbed wire on top, I heard it's going to be 5 feet tall. I think a total of 6 feet tall with the barbed wire. There's nothing aesthetically pleasing about how this is going to look. It's going to go from Crop Road all the way to Route 40. And listen, this is affecting really some very dear friends of mine who are participating in this. And I feel bad. I'm all about property rights. I'm all about all the money a farmer can make. I've always been a big supporter of every farmer, but it just doesn't belong here. And I know nobody wants it near their home, but this, they're putting it here to get the transmission lines to Cole Road, where the AEP, the little substation is. And their concern is whether or not they can build one somewhere where they can get to a substation. While this is a very profitable project for many, many people, let them build another substation. It's kind of hard for me to feel sorry for them that they can't find a substation. But I think as this word gets out, this group that Scott has started is going to grow, and it's probably going to grow by the thousands. It's amazing that something like this is so quiet. And I think it's quiet because most people are kind of resolved with the fact that they can't do anything about it, since no zoning can overrule a utility project like this. But that's not really true. I think we have to let the state of Ohio know that there are areas for projects like this, and it doesn't have to meander right through the Darby Creek area. And I'll tell you, it's going to be an eyesore. It's going to be something we're probably going to regret for the next 35, 40 years. Again, the report stating it won't hurt property values, to me, it's a bogus report. I'm challenging the guy who wrote it. Basically, most people are looking at 20 acres, 50 acres, maybe 100 acres of a solar farm. Never has there been one of 2,500 acres. The green initiatives that Franklin County and Columbus follows, I think we're all about that, guys. Again, we're not against other types of energy, but this particular company, I sat with a friend of mine, and we talked to the developer. And one thing that really shocked me, they weren't even going to pull a bond on this project until the 15th year, which could just be a nightmare. Something would happen between now and the 15th year. They may have changed that due to the pressure that we have put on them. But I think, just as our trustees, I think I'd get really, really involved. And I think if the word was out, would you want one of these with a proper display of what it's going to look like? I would say there's a high percentage, 75, 80% of the people would say, no, they don't want it. It doesn't affect me directly. It does not about my property. But guys, I think we're going to change the face of our landscape out here if we don't fight hard and get them to relocate this project.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else?
Nope, somebody else has indicated they wanted to talk, but
Okay.
could talk, so just that I've seen. I do have Mr. Newberry's contact information for you guys to the minutes tonight.
I don't know if you saw on my notes here that today, this was in the Otarma email that they sent. Did you see that email that today they were going to discuss Senate Bill 52 about wind farms, but it also says, and those two names beside it are, I believe, the senators who introduced. Thank you. And they want to require inclusion of safety specifications in wind farm certificate applications to modify wind turbines setbacks and to permit a township referendum vote on certain wind farm and solar facility certificates. So they were having that hearing today. So. All right, is there anything else? Nothing.
You know, I'd like to have one, just a short, quick one if I could, please.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I will move to resolution. Sorry. I will move that we go into executive session according to the Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1 for the purpose of discussing personnel. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Trustee Sheets.
Yes.
Trustee Hunter.
Yes.
Trustee Good.
Yes. All right. Ning, you're welcome to stay. We'll turn this back on when we're finished with executive session. If you'd like to stay, but if not, thank you for joining. So I was waiting for us to get done.
Should be good, ma'am.
I move to come out of executive session according to Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G. Have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Trustee Sheets.
Yeah.
Trustee Hunter.
Yes.
Trustee Good. Yes.
I move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Trustee Sheets.
Yeah.
Trustee Hunter.
Yes.
Trustee. Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 8 o'clock.